All right, so here we go. Our, what is this, third football movie of the month review at this point. We've got our very most special guest on, not Ish this time, surprisingly. It's William Wilkerson, our social media and digital media guru. Welcome, Will.
Hello, guys.
We never thought we'd get you on camera.
I know. I'd like to say behind the scenes, but you pulled me out of hibernation here, so here I am.
Perfect. All right, so the movie of the month this month was Little Giants, which we have all watched, and I'm sure I'll have some takes on. So we will start off with Tepper. We'll give you the go with your overall thoughts on Little Giants.
Before we get there, had everyone seen this movie at some point in their lives before this?
Definitely, 100%.
Oh, yeah. I had seen this a bunch when I was little.
Wait, we're talking about Rudy, right? That was the movie of the month per Ish.
Oh, no.
Oh,
sorry, man.
All right, we're not inviting Will back anymore.
Yeah, Will's done. You know how like you do a chore really, really badly so they don't ask you to do the chore anymore? That's
Will has an entire great dissection of Rudy coming up.
I do. It's right off camera.
So, Pickle, you had never seen this before.
No, this is the first time for me.
Then I'm going to toss it back to you because I want your initial thoughts. We all came into this with some priors.
Right.
What was your initial thought?
I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Like, going from necessary roughness to Little Giants was like going from below the floor to pretty stinking high. I thought it was good. I thought the humor was really funny in it. Like, it's got a good storyline that's cheesy, but not too cheesy. Like, the humor kind of masks what could have been too cheesy. But overall, I thought it was absolutely great. I really did enjoy it.
Okay. I am going to say that there were times in this movie where I had to remind myself that this was not a movie for a 33-year-old man. There is definitely a lot of childishness to this. It's decidedly a kid's movie. If you had any sort of ideas that there were some sort of like hidden meaning that you were missing, like, you are not. It is a movie that prominently features farts. And so there was that. I thought that it was overall charming. I thought that almost all of the child actors were very bad. But
wrong.
the story kind of pulled it together. And I thought that while there were very clear plot holes, in my opinion, I did not have there were times I did not have a bad time watching this movie. Necessary Roughness was a miserable experience. This was not an experience. It was, in fact, I don't know if I'd call it like a pleasant experience. I don't know if I'd seek it out on my own if we weren't doing this, but I did not feel like I wasted my time.
Tepper, if you can mention farts and good plot in the same sentence, I think it.
Thank you.
2 thumbs up, 8 thumbs up, half thumb up.
That's a decent.
I liked it. I liked it. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I thought it was cute.
Ish.
So when I was younger, I loved this movie. Like, I guess how Adam described Necessary Roughness was when he was in college. This was me when I was younger. And so my biggest fear, and I hadn't seen it in legitimately like 20 years. And so my biggest fear was like, oh man, am I going to watch this and just like think I was the dumbest kid ever? And like, not, to be like, oh my gosh, why was I obsessed with this movie? And no, I think I enjoyed it. I watched it again, and yes, yeah, that was the one takeaway is like, yes, obviously this isn't made for us, but with that caveat, I thought that, like, I don't want to say perfectly, but I thought it was a good little poking fun at the kind of youth football, because I mean, I don't know if Will and you, Tepper, both you played youth football when you were like, obviously before middle school and all that. You remember the time you first walked out there with guys who did not know how to play football, right? And like how like everybody leaned on the one guy who could really kind of semi do things okay, and like he was like the best player on the team, or like at times,
sure.
And little moments like that. We'll get into favorite scenes and all that, but I just love, like, I remember watching that. It's like, yeah, no, that's how youth football kind of was to a certain extent. You had like in the league, there was always the one really good team and the team that like everybody couldn't wait to play because they were just so bad at everything, and like things like that, and little touches. Yeah, overall, the humor, I will say there are moments in this movie that, two in particular, that I want to hint at when we talk about favorite scenes, that legitimately got me to laugh, and way more, and I probably laughed the same amount as I did when I was like 8 years old. So.
Okay. All right. So overall, it sounds like we're mostly positive on this movie.
I feel like an underrated thing about it too, just another overall thought about it, with everything else that's going on in the world, like I think I enjoyed like the childish humor for a minute. Like everything now is so serious, and it's like it was nice to just kind of break away from that for a minute.
Yeah. I thought it was harmless fun. That's the overall. It was harmless. It wasn't like, it didn't insult my intelligence with that dumb of humor.
Right.
And
right.
so that gets me gets a overall a passing grade for me.
Perfect. So positive so far. We'll continue that. We'll start with Ish this time, since he was already kind of hinting at it. Next category is your favorite scene and or scenes from the movie.
Yeah, so I think my favorite scene overall is probably when they're assembling the team, just kind of walking along the little train tracks, and like they're kind of coming through the bushes. You know, they're showing the interactions of like, you know, there's like a latchkey kid whose dad's always out of town, and so they get him to play. The one kid riding the little quarter machine, and he's like, "Do you like football? No. You want to play football? No. You can play for us." But two of my favorite moments was when, at the very beginning, oh God, what's the older brother's name? Not Danny. Kevin O'Shea. Kevin O'Shea picks the Cowboys, and the rest of the kids there, and Danny walks over and he just looks around. He's like, "Well, this really sucks. Guess there's nothing we can learn from it." Like, one of those moments where you're just like, yeah, like that just kind of sucks. And then the other one was at the end when they're calling the second to last player, the third to last player, whatever, they're calling the reverse. And he was like, "What play is that?" And he's like, "It's a reverse to Johnny." It's like, "Johnny? It can't be a reverse to Johnny. I'm Johnny." And so those two moments were the ones that legitimately got me to laugh, probably as hard as I laughed when I was 8, because they were just great.
I thought one of the scenes that I kept coming back to, and actually I didn't have this written down as my favorite scene, but I think that it ended up being one of my favorite scenes, was the scene in the grocery store when they recruit Junior, the star
Devin
quarterback. Devin Sawa. We will get to Devin Sawa and White Thoughts. But I thought actually at the end of the movie, that ends up being like the pivotal scene, kind of, in that they recruit by far their best player, and we'll get to the game when they suddenly figure out, why don't we just find interesting ways to get the ball to the one kid who knows what he's doing. But between that, they allude to the hot hands. It's like his problem is that it's all on its head, and when he thinks about, if he just thinks that it's a roll of toilet paper, he'll relax. And then of course the Icebox and Junior romance.
Yeah.
I'll get to that. But that the overall, like, in hindsight, I agree with you. I thought that was a really fun way of introducing a lot of characters all at once, and giving them like one big character trait. And like a lot of these.
Yeah, I was gonna say the one thing that like differs from this between like Necessary Roughness is like, you watch Necessary Roughness and you remember, you can see a character come on screen. You're like, wait, what did you do again? Like, what was your point? What was your, there was so many characters that you were like, what was the point of view? And even if it's just one thing, every little kid in this movie like has something, right? And you see something in the game. And
you see that a lot in these ensemble movies. And where Necessary Roughness fell short is that like it came off flat and like thrown in. Whereas this had like a nice payoff for almost
basically everyone. Yeah, basically everyone.
But yeah, those would be the scenes that I really liked. Will.
So I paid $4 on YouTube to rent this. I saw how you guys were we're watching on your end, and I just decided to go ahead and pay a couple bucks to watch this, and it was nice without the ads, I guess. Ish, you mentioned this. You alluded to Johnny's reverse there. I thought that was a great scene. Everybody
Awesome,
talks about
wasn't
the
it?
annexation of Puerto Rico. I like the Chicken Little flea flicker. I thought it was awesome. You know, the kid was always missing his dad. His dad comes walking in with his briefcase and his luggage, scores this ridiculous touchdown. I thought it was great. And then I'm going to keep alluding to farts because I think they're hilarious. And there was the fart scene the tryout scene when Rudy was trying to go across the monkey bars and he fell on the pile of kids at the bottom. And
I like how no one
passing
moved in
gas
that
on
scene, by the way.
No,
Yeah.
They're just all
Go! Get out of there!
get out of the way.
You have plenty
They're
of
just all
time.
falling down. And they just keep going too. Not only are they piling on each other, they just keep going.
Okay.
Off the
Oh yeah.
And we've alluded to Johnny a lot. And I want to bring something up that I noticed, and I think that it's definitely like a sign of the times type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a big theme in 90s movies, especially 90s kids movies. This is an entire town comprised of divorcees. Okay?
oh,
It is a
That's a good
ton
point.
of single
That's a
parent
good
households. Okay? Rick Moranis, mom left us, right?
Mhm. Yeah, they're open about that.
They are open about that. We don't know where Junior's dad is, but considering mom is making out with Rick Moranis at the end of it, like, I hope he's out of the picture.
Right.
Johnny's dad is, we never see Johnny's mom. So, like, I presume there's that.
Well, the implication is that he's alone. So when
Yes.
his dad leaves, you assume that the mom's out of the picture.
Yeah, mom's out of the picture. Other than that, it's a really, really scrawny kid. You only see mom,
Spike.
right?
Spike.
Spike, you never see mom. But I think that is, and if you go back in 90s movies, and I think that's because there was something that a lot of kids could relate to, sadly, is you started seeing more and more single parent households depicted in film. That was one thing that I picked up on. Like, man, there are a lot of only mom or only dad. Who had two parents, right? Kevin O'Shea was married. And then Zoltek had two, and then Hot Hands had mom and dad.
Yeah. And that was it.
That might be it, man. Yeah. That was one
the
thing
others
I
we didn't
found
even
really interesting.
We didn't even see the other's parents, I think, for the most part, for the kids.
Yeah, there was a lot of single moms, single dads, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
I think a sign of
That's
the
a good
times.
pickup.
Yeah. All right, my favorite scene, there are a couple of them. One of them is when Icebox walks into the cafe thing and she convinces her dad that they're going to start the team, and the little old men are sitting there, and they have, of course, been betting on all this stuff all the time. And the one just goes, "Oh, what if we have a playoff?" And like that, it reminded me of us sitting around the office, honestly, because it's like we're way older than these kids, but we feed off of this stuff. Like, oh yeah, let's have a playoff. We should do that. Y'all should
play each other. Yeah.
Those old men only
awesome
exist to cause trouble.
And then they kept betting. Like, I loved every scene, but that initial one where he goes, "You should have a playoff," and then he looks at the other one like, "Look what I just did."
They are agents of chaos.
They wrote a spread on the board in the restaurant.
And he laid 40.
40.
Yes.
That is Adam in 10 years.
And here's the other thing. Remember, they're the guys who make simultaneous phone calls to the
Spike.
Yes. Yep.
They exist. They are bored old men in a small town. It's like, let's F some things up.
Yep. And then I liked that one. And then I loved the scene where Icebox goes out onto the field and the dad goes, "Who's the cheerleader in the skirt?" And he goes, "It's not a cheerleader. That's my niece. And she is upset." And that's like when you knew that she was about to go out there. And that's like the first time that he had never been like super all, "Oh, I'm Kevin O'Shea." He goes, "That's my niece. She's not a cheerleader and she is not happy." Like, he knew in that moment.
Hinting on another scene, that's an iconic scene. Like Becky throwing down the pom-poms, putting on the pads. Like, it was like, all right, here we go. Icebox is back.
Yeah, I did. I like that scene where she finally, because basically Spike took a cheap shot at Junior,
Yeah.
and she was like, "That's it. That's the
That's
final
my man.
straw."
Don't touch him. Like that's exactly what it was.
And yeah, it was. I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, all right, so there we go. We're going to go polar opposite here and go with your least favorite scene.
Let's go to Will first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pickle, you mentioned it. Icebox coming out in the cheerleading costume with her helmet and her cleats. I hated the scene when she came into the locker room prior to kickoff of the game in her cheerleading outfit.
Yes.
And your heart's crushed because you want them to win so badly, and you know without her they have no chance. I hated that scene. It crushed the kid in me. So that would be my least favorite scene for sure. They were pumped, they were hyped. I hated that one.
And she hated it too.
Yeah, after the
Sure.
fact though, when she walked in actually looking like a girl, and maybe this is because I could relate to this at one point when I was super tomboy, but when she finally looked like an actual girl, they all went and just watched her. Like, I did love the aftermath of that, but I agree that was a bad scene regardless.
Before we get to least favorite scene, I do want to throw in one other scene that you reminded me of right before she walks into the locker room in the cheerleader outfit. When Kevin O'Shea and the Cowboys have brought in a priest to pray, and then they are in the other locker room making noise, and Kevin O'Shea turned around and goes, "What in Christ's name is that?" or something like that.
Priest looks over
right next to the priest.
He does it's a little subtle shot. The priest, it's like a half-second shot. The priest looks at him when he says that, like, what?
That was an actual laugh out loud moment for me. I was like, that is funny. That's clever. Okay. By far, the worst scene in this movie is the scene where they're sitting on the boat watching the people make out.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's really bad.
Cringeworthy for sure.
By the way, the biggest problem with this movie, is that they really tried to jam in a prepubescent love story. And so then Icebox clearly has a crush on Junior. That's made very clear. She calls him a hunk at one point, which is so 90s. But then they end up over at she's over there at like sitting on a boat upside down by the way, this is Ohio where they've got tons of mountains, by the way.
Yeah.
But she's sitting there watching these people just absolutely go at it in the boat.
Oh, it is like they are going at it. I remember, I'm like, what? Like,
and so then Junior comes in because movie, and they sit there and they start having a conversation about kissing. And you're thinking, oh, is this the point? Like, and instead it just comes off as extremely awkward and extremely, I don't know.
You didn't like the kissing the hand?
Oh, God. Oh. And
Then the kids in the boat never once looked over, even though she was like 20 yards away.
She wasn't that far.
Why do you not look over? Like, get off, kid. You know.
Look, it's hard to find privacy in Urbania, apparently. But then here's the thing: is that whole love story and the whole idea of like Icebox likes Junior, but she thinks that Junior's only into cheerleaders or whatever. Mm-hmm. The payoff is that then after the game, they hold hands and jump up and down while their parents make out. And I've got to tell you, the idea of them being stepbrother and stepsister then crossed my mind, and it became even worse. So I would just kind of put the whole love story as my.
Yeah, I want to hint off of that because the boat scene's mine too. Because I get it, like it's a kids movie, so you can't have like 2 10-year-olds in love. Like that's obviously, but they like juggled the weird, like, no, you're not necessarily into the opposite sex 100% at 10, right? And so, but they did it so awkwardly about like, and yes, there's a way to do it awkwardly because it is awkward when you're trying to talk about feelings while not trying to say you like each other. But it was really awkward when they're just trying to talk around the fact that they like each other. I played one line back after I heard it because I wanted to make sure I heard it correctly. Was there some like thinly veiled like corporate sexist commentary going on? Because if you guys remember, they're talking about like when you have to learn to kiss eventually, right? Becky says one line, and I had to rewind it to make sure I heard it right. And it was right. I think Will knows where I'm going. Come on,
Yes.
you got to learn. Okay, come on, you got to learn sometime. If kids or get a job. And then Junior says, you can have kids without kissing. Becky says, but you can't get a job.
Can't get a job.
I'm wondering,
Right.
was that like a very undersold like commentary on like corporate workplace sexism in the 90s? I had to rewind. I was like, did I catch that right? Did they say job?
Listen, I think we're cracking a code here. Tepper's talking about the single parents, ish workplace misconduct or inappropriation. I don't know what this is not.
Maybe, but I had to rewind that because I had to make sure I heard that right.
That's really, I don't know, the whole love scene just didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. I don't know, it felt tacked on. What was the scene? As somebody who out from the jump said this is like a 10 out of 10 movie.
Yeah, I loved it. I think that my least favorite scene, because I like the little awkward romance thing that they had going on. Like, I completely disagree with y'all. And maybe that's a girly side of me coming out, but that was like, shoot, man, I was Icebox. I was not a cheerleader. Like, I related to her so hard. And so it was one of those things. I think the thing that I didn't like was the very last scene when you, like you said, they're over there and you're hoping that he either says like, oh, I like you, or I don't know, hugs her or something. They hold hand and jump while their parents are making out. Like that stunk. Like, if you're gonna do a love story thing at that point, at least give her a kiss on the cheek or something, like something that 10-year-old would hug her and say, you know, or I think you look great or something like that. But yeah, it was not the ending that should have happened. Like, not good.
I wanted to see Kevin O'Shea work at his car dealership under his brother's leadership.
Okay,
that would be awesome.
Can we stop for a second?
Go ahead.
That's the worst deal of all time. He has just admitted that the gas station is worthless. He has just said it himself, and then he puts his very valuable car dealership up against the gas station. That is, you know, look, obviously that it doesn't get paid off in the end, and it says, oh no, we're going to keep these things, but instead you got to put my name on the water tower, which I did find to be a very charming, cute ending to it.
That was a good payoff ending.
That was a good payoff, but
For sure.
I remember thinking there, and I'd forgotten that whole scene, like the confrontation at midfield before the game.
Yeah.
And by the way, they're on the same sideline. That bothered him. And but they are, and the mayor's it's the mayor, I think. He's holding the microphone so everybody can hear him. And what I thought was really interesting was, like, I feel like they could have played that up more and been like, he has just revealed to the entire town that he's an a-hole. And so now the whole crowd is going to be behind the
rooting
guy.
against.
They want to see him get his come up.
Yeah.
Instead, like, they didn't pay that off. So I don't know. But yeah, that's a terrible deal by Kevin O'Shea.
All right, so there are the least favorite scenes. Up next, character MVP.
Okay, Pickle, you're first, and there is a correct answer to this. And if you don't get this right, we're done.
Okay, I knew my answer from very soon into the movie. My favorite character was Jake, the little bitty goofy kid. I loved him when he puts on the helmet and he goes, I can't see with this thing on. Like, everything about that kid was so stinking funny. I'm not kidding. Like, I almost laughed a couple of different times at him. I love that kid. There it is.
Okay. That's the wrong answer. We'll go to Will for the steal.
Rudy. Listen, passes gas whenever he wants to, which is awesome. Something I don't do. Aaron can attest to this. But he's eating all the time. I love it. I just love chubby kids in general. I was a chubby baby, so I can relate. Rudy, I love him. He's cute, adorable, farts. Give me more. I couldn't get enough.
I'm going to ask you to save this.
It's Becky the Icebox O'Shea. It is Becky the Icebox O'Shea.
Crazy.
No, it is 100% Becky the Icebox O'Shea. Name me another movie in the 90s that has that type of character, that little girl archetype as the central figure trying to realize who she wants to be, what she is, and going through the ups and the downs of that and trying to negotiate that with her own interests, like that to me, that's what makes, because it's a kids movie most of all. That's it. Like that's the character to me. That's the archetype that everybody should be looking to, because that's the one. Yes, for little girls, it's obviously somebody that was very representative of girls who were into sports and overall, but even just kids in general, like they can look at that and say, like, here's somebody who is into something passionately. People are telling her that's wrong, or that's not what you're supposed to do, and she tries to kind of adjust to that, and it doesn't work for her, and she doesn't believe in that, and she hates it, and she goes back to what she actually liked to do. Like to me, that was the kids movie message of this whole thing. Okay. And yes, I feel like you're gonna say Rick Moranis and Danny, and I feel like no, you're not gonna say Danny either. Okay, well, anyway, he was my second place, but to me, it was Becky O'Shea. Becky the Icebox O'Shea is the timeless character in this movie.
All right.
And when she was feeling sad, she poured herself a glass of chocolate milk and felt better.
It was great. Like that girl. Much chocolate in it.
Okay.
My girl.
All right. I want to be clear that Ish makes a very good point. Icebox is the central character in this movie. She is I think a overall and a very good character.
The one I think they do a great job of establishing her reputation too, because every scene, especially in the beginning, like when the other players come over to their little hut or whatever, and then all of a sudden she just pulls around from the go-kart and just starts doing it, and they're like, it's Icebox, and then like run away. Yeah. Like, he runs that town. And I don't know. I thought, like I said, historically, it backs me up. People remember Becky the Icebox O'Shea. Okay.
The answer is so clearly Kevin O'Shea, it's not even funny. Ed O'Neill holds this movie together. And look, maybe I just have a type, because you remember that Larry Miller was my favorite character in Necessary Roughness. Maybe I just love the villain, but Ed O'Neill plays such a great jerk in this movie. He is so good. And all the little things, like chewing the gum, right? Little things like that.
Hated that.
Little things. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Like all
to spear his wife and
yes!
with the pillowcase, whatever.
It was such an underrated scene afterwards when she's sitting there with the daughters, completely done with shit, and just cracking up laughing. Like so underrated.
Great together.
Awesome.
He drives the Corvette. He's got a lackey.
Which has Heisman.
Like,
license plate.
Oh my gosh. I loved, and by the way, here's the other thing. He wasn't, in Necessary Roughness, Larry Miller, the dean, was just this sneering one-note guy who wanted everybody to fail.
Right.
He obviously, as you see, not only at the end, but also during it, he cares about his niece. I think he genuinely does care about his brother. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, like he's a good, like, for example, perfect example is when Spike spears Junior. And then he tells off Spike's dad, he's like, we're not going to do it like that. Like, it's clear that he's a jerk. He's the antagonist in this movie, but he has a good heart. And beyond that, he's clearly the best actor in this movie. He was so good. And it's just, I don't know, all the little things like the catchphrase at the car dealer. It's like, they'll thank me tomorrow. It's like, what a jerk phrase. Oh my God. I loved Ed O'Neill. I loved Kevin O'Shea in this movie.
He was good. And I do want to throw out a Rick Moranis as well. Like, he played that awkward, dorky dad character really well. And like, it wasn't obvious that he kind of lost his way in the middle of the movie, because it did become eventually about beating his brother. And like, he obviously became way too competitive with that, trying to get Spike, basically throwing Becky under the bus, trying to get Spike and all this stuff. And it was very subtle with how he messed up at times, but he did. And like, I thought he was always really good. And I like Rick Moranis in a lot of things. So
yeah.
Fair. All right. Well, differing opinions. Apparently.
So we had four. Okay, first of all,
pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah, we had 4 different characters. That's pretty good.
All right, now we'll go opposite side of the spectrum. We will go your least valuable character. the one that you did not like at all. We'll start with Ish.
I was trying to find the actor. I couldn't. It's the assistant coach. I'm sorry.
100%.
When you have Ed O'Neill already playing at up here, you don't need an assistant coach playing up here. He was so, oh God. You talked about somebody playing just one note completely the whole movie, and it just got too much. I was like, you're playing next to Ed O'Neill. You don't need to be. And then it didn't like Spike's dad didn't help. He was basically another one of those guys, and so it was just like overall, I'm just like every time he talked, I'm like, okay, like God, keep it, move on. I don't need to see this guy anymore. He was just annoying.
I would rather had Spike's dad's character than the assistant coach in my estimation. I thought they were the same. They carried it so much. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I agree with that. If like Spike was the assistant coach's son or something, like it just combined those together and it would have been fine.
Yeah. I completely agree.
I think I'm in total agreement. I thought he didn't bring anything to the movie. Like there were characters I did not like. For example, Will, you and I just differ on Zoltek. I had no use for that kid, but I also liked he at least I can understand his value. Like they need the character. It's like he's unathletic and he's like unathletic basically. But he's fat, he's out of shape, and
80% athleticism and 40% mental or whatever. 80 and 40.
Yeah, and so but Butts added nothing to the movie. I totally agree that he added nothing to the movie. Okay, one thing to kind of circle back on this, a scene that Butts is involved in. Okay, and this was another one of my least favorite scenes. Okay. The spying scene. Okay. So they find out that through the grapevine, the Cowboys find out that that they have a quarterback in Junior. And they say, look at the cannon on this kid, when this kid very clearly does not have a cannon.
It's like an okay arm.
It's an okay junior. He's an okay Pee Wee quarterback.
Yeah.
He's clearly bigger than all the other kids though.
Right.
So
I was about to say, him and Spike are like 14, like clearly.
Oh yeah. And so then Kevin and Butts go to the with binoculars. Rick Moranis has the, I think, very good idea of, I'm going to call the state police, stuff like that. And the state police show up and
draw arms
down on this dude. Immediately, they just there are 3 cops with arms drawn. Like, for guys with binoculars. And, that's, again, it is a very serious situation that you should not be watching kids practice football. That is creepy. But maybe we can talk to them first. Or we're pulling out
it was immediate guns drawn. State
love
troopers.
When the little nerdy kid who draws up the plays and stuff, he sees them and then he walks up to Coach and he goes, "Spies." And that's all he says. It was great.
He's so underrated. Speaking of another good character, he's so underrated because his role is just to be the coach with this random contraption thing that I don't know what.
The screen is never on.
The screen's never on. I guess it prints stuff out too. I don't know. But he does one note or one line every other scene or something, and that's it, and it's great.
Oh, what were y'all's thoughts on the famous athletes and Madden cameos?
Did Tim Brown say anything? Tim Brown didn't do anything.
He didn't do anything.
Okay, I was wondering because I had to
did.
go back. Emmett Smith talked. Bruce Smith had the little thing with
Bruce Smith had
intimidation
a terrible delivery of a line.
Right, and then I forgot the other guy.
Who's the huge dude? I recognized everyone except him.
Yeah, and he helps Zoltek.
No, we're talking about the white guy.
Yeah, big white guy.
Was that Kevin?
Let's see. It's Steve Emptman.
So
there's
wow!
that.
Okay. Wow.
I don't know.
That is a name I've not heard.
Yeah. I could have taken it or left it. I thought Madden was great, but Madden's Madden's always great.
Awesome.
Madden's awesome. Yeah. We got to get to Canton. We got to go boom, and we got to get it hard.
So good.
We're making it to Canada.
Yeah, that was. I liked. Obviously, you want to kind of get some cameos in. It felt like a box you tick in a kids movie.
Yeah.
Although,
I think they could. I don't know. It was like it felt really short to me. Like I get it, they're stars. They don't want to be there for that long. But it was like y'all couldn't get them for a little bit.
But at least they served like a little bit of a purpose, unlike Necessary Roughness and the prison scene where they literally ran one play and then left. Like I appreciated this one
That's true.
so much more after that.
Speaking of underrated characters, okay, let's give it up for one of the GOATs, Harry Shearer as the announcer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay. That's how you do an announcing in a movie. He didn't call the whole game. He didn't do he was very spotty. He called the highlights, and that is it. He's not Rob Schneidering it up.
For those who don't know, Harry Shearer is Ned Flanders. He is Kent Brockman. He's Principal Skinner in The Simpsons. And he showed up, and I go, oh my God, Harry Shearer is here to save this movie. He was great. Perfect.
All right. Perfect. Okay, so the next category, we'll save Tepper for last on this because I'm pretty sure this is his favorite category of every movie that we've watched. Will, we'll go with you first. How was the realness of the football?
It's like one of the Tepper's tweets. Oh boy. Well, there was some quality football there. From someone who grew up in a small town, the actual football game itself, especially early on when the Cowboys were kind of taking it to the Giants, there were some things there that I could absolutely see happening in Pee Wee football. But then it got a little hairy there, and you start to wonder what in the hell's going on. And I didn't see much great football to say much. Yeah, I just didn't see very much there.
That's fair. I agree that I think that obviously the quality of the football was pretty crappy, but I think that helped perfectly with the story because we are talking
100%.
about football, and it's like, yeah, you see, I agree. The first half, especially when a team is good and stuff. Obviously, the second half was for the happy portion of the story, but I think it was pretty realistic considering we're talking about Pee Wee football and one team that has never stepped foot on a football field before.
There was one scene. There was a play coming out of halftime whenever the Giants were kind of turning it on a little bit, and they had just gained 1 yard and went crazy. And then the quarterback had like a QB draw. And I don't know who this defensive player was for the Cowboys, but he lit that quarterback up, and it surprised the heck out of me. So that was cool. I really appreciated it.
There were so the things I do appreciate about this movie are the fact that it leans into the absurdity with a lot of youth football, and a lot of youth football is kind of absurd. So for the most part, I agree with Will on saying that there's a lot of weirdness that happens in youth football when you're talking about kids who are playing for the very first time anything competitive. And so I think the archetypes of those type of kids on the field were right. You have kids, again, I played before. You have kids who are literally terrified when the ball's about to be snapped. Like that's a thing when you're 10 or 11.
I'm Johnny.
Right, exactly. I'm John. Like, don't give me the ball. Like, please. We're playing the good team, please. Things like that. Like that, I did appreciate some little moments like that. No, the football's not realistic in the slightest. I did at one point, for my own purposes, I was like, do they have 11 players? Like I had to count.
Yes, I did it too.
They did, but then you realize there's literally like only 11 players like on the whole team, and so you're like, okay, that's why you had to count because you're used to seeing bigger sidelines and all that. But yeah, it wasn't realistic in the slightest, but it wasn't trying to be. The one thing, getting off the field a little bit, the things that I liked, that a former Heisman Trophy winning hometown quarterback or hometown player came back to coach youth football.
Yeah.
And not like high school or something.
There's not a high school in this town, apparently.
Right.
We're hearing.
I was about to say, there's definitely not a high school in this town. I was trying to think of an equivalent. Like it's basically be like if like J.K. Dobbins went back to LaGrange to coach like youth, I guess.
Football, yeah. But like he couldn't even make the staff at LaGrange.
Right, exactly. And then the other one was like there's so much branding. Like it was like O'Shea, everything. Like I mean, again, that's getting off the field, but I just realized like that the town turned out for that game. Like it's called O'Shea Field. O'Shea's on the water tower. Like it's all this different stuff with just O'Shea on it. And I was trying to think of an equivalent, and I guess you got to go to like 3A or 2A producing a Heisman winner, and the whole town just gravitating towards whatever they do.
Okay.
All right.
So this is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is the part of the movie that I gave it the most grace because it's a kid's movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Necessary Roughness is supposed to be a movie for thinking adults, and the football is trash, right? Friday Night Lights is supposed to be a movie for thinking adults, and the football is good. They don't insult your intelligence. The football is not, it doesn't have to be good here, and it's not. There are a couple of plays. The Cowboys run an option play at one point that I literally wrote down. I was like, that's a nice play. Like, they clearly, like, practice this and stuff like that. For teams that are obsessed with quarterbacks, they don't throw the ball a ton.
Right.
But I also appreciate I appreciated the little things of, like, okay, the Cowboys are going to feed Spike because he is their best player, which is a very Pee-wee football thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants eventually figure out we need to find new and interesting ways to get the ball to Junior. We're going to let him return kicks. We're going to let him do this. We're going to let him do that. He is our best player. We are going to lean on him. I appreciated that. Let's have a talk about the annexation of Puerto Rico. Okay. So the annexation of Puerto Rico is just fundamentally a fumble-rooski.
Yeah.
Right? And the game is tied at 21, and you have the ball on the 1 yard line, your own 1 yard line. The fumble-rooski is the worst play call you can possibly have in that situation. There are 700 things that can go wrong that result in you losing the game. At worst, you should be going to overtime or ending in a tie. At worst, and instead, you take a wholly unnecessary risk and put the ball on the ground and give the ball to Fart Machine.
Yes. Thank you.
I love how like, by the way, I love how that play just goes terribly because he gets caught at like the 30 and just throws the ball. Then they score from there, but like the initial drop of the play goes terribly.
It doesn't work.
And my boy Jake gets it done.
That part drove me a little nuts. So basically, the plays that they score on are, how do they score the first? They score on the they score on a.
Oh, they scored when the scrawny white kid ducks when they and the defenders go into the water.
Yes. Yeah.
Tad.
They do that. Tad scores. Johnny scores.
And the kid with the Johnny's the dad.
Johnny's the kid with the dad.
Yeah, as he goes, I'm gonna score. Dad, I'm gonna score.
Yeah.
Like the whole time he's going down.
There was that, but then there's one other touchdown. I guess I can't remember.
The hot hands.
Hot hands.
Yes.
That's right. Hot hands caught it.
I think he ties it, or he's second. The second.
I think he ties
score.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so hot hands. Hot hands ties it.
With the stickum.
My wife asked me what stickum was. I'm like, that is a thing.
Yeah.
Stickum is a thing. It doesn't work like that, but it is a thing.
Like elastic.
Right. Look, the football in the movie was not good, but I don't expect it to be good. And that's okay. Yeah. That's fine.
There you go. Tepper's favorite segment, I'm telling you. All right. Up next, we've got wife thoughts.
Well,
I will say that Erin did not watch this movie with me. She was busy watching some chick flick that I can't think of the name. Julia Roberts was involved, but
usually is.
Yes, pretty much usually is. She said, and Ish, cover your ears. She said that Jake was like the Rudy of our time because because we all wanted to root for him. So I'll leave that there for you to.
I will say this. All I'll say is this: Jake is better and more inspirational than Rudy. That's all I can say.
And she loved
all day.
She loved Icebox. Obviously, she was an athlete growing up, so and she had those tomboy tendencies as well. So she liked seeing, Icebox be one of the main characters. She thought that was awesome. So those are her takeaways.
Tep wife watched this. This was one of my wife's favorite movies growing up. She loves this movie. And a big reason why is Icebox. And I think that actually a lot of things that you mentioned and Ish when you were talking about and what Aaron was saying about how it's a strong female who's saying, just because I'm a girl doesn't mean I can't do, boy things and things like that. And my wife is far from a tomboy, but she's still like related to the idea of like, girl empowerment and things like that. But that is not what my wife spent the movie talking about. No, my wife spent the movie talking about Devon Sawa, who is the guy who plays Junior.
Yep.
For those who don't know,
he plays 90s kid.
He is 90s kid.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, let's pull up Devon Sawa's IMDb. First of all, Devon Sawa is in a new film with John Travolta that is
The Fanatic.
It's apparently hilariously bad.
It's horrendous.
Which is great. He's also like
he played Devon Sawa in the movie.
He plays like fundamentally like the character, I think.
Okay.
So
but he's Final Destination is like one of his biggest.
Yeah. So this is
him?
He was in Final Destination, yeah.
Okay.
He was really big in the 90s, right? Little Giants. After this, he was in Casper. And he was human Casper.
Oh, yeah.
You remember him?
Yeah, I forgot about that.
This was a guy who was very much like cut from the Jonathan Taylor Thomas cloth.
Yeah, right.
Okay, he's got the swoopy hair.
The 90s part that you'll never see anymore.
He can't act. Like all of these things. And my wife was obsessed with Devon Sawa. Okay. And so a lot of the conversation between me and her during this movie was her just like fanning herself during it because Devon Sawa was what was in it. And he is, by the way, if you're interested, Devon Sawa, born in 1978, which means that he will turn 42 this month or this year.
Goodness.
He'll turn 42. He was in the Eminem music video for Stan, if that's a thing that's interesting to you.
That's so random.
Stan.
Correct. And yeah, he is. That was my wife's big takeaway. She liked the movie a lot. She still loves it. She thinks it's a masterpiece. But yeah, I thought that I heard a lot about how Devon Sawa is so clearly just like the hottest man who's ever walked the earth.
Okay, before I transition to roomy thoughts here, just one quick thing about Sawa was the fact that like I could tell pretty early on in the movie, I was like, oh man, I'm Icebox, like, oh, I'm gonna respect this girl. And then once the Junior thing came in, I just started dying laughing because probably like the first boy I ever had a crush on looked eerily similar to that kid. And I was like, oh God, this is ridiculous. So anyway, I feel that with Tep Wife. But
he played 90s kid. He played every 90s kid ever.
Hold on. Now I would like to, let me see if I can do this very quickly. I'm going to pull up a side-by-side of Devon Sawa then and Devon Sawa now. Okay. So let me see if I can do this quickly.
Hope he doesn't have the part still.
So here we go. Let's get a real feeling on what we're looking at here. Here is Devon Sawa then and Devon Sawa now.
His nose get like substantially bigger.
I was about to say.
Like that's a honker.
That's a nose.
But no, you're right. That's the thing. He is 90s kid.
He's 90s kid.
Yeah. He just played 90s kid.
Every kid, look at like Disney Channel original movies, all that stuff. They all had kids that looked like that.
There were like 12 of them that were revolving door in the 90s that all played in these dumb movies, and they all had the swoopy hair and they all couldn't act. So
you know what it was? It was the low rent Leo.
You're so right.
It was like if they could find a little kid who had the 90s Leo look aesthetic.
It's Leonardo DiCaprio who will work for scale.
Right, exactly. It was like,
Yes.
can we find the next one of those guys?
That's exactly right.
And they never did, but they tried.
No, they didn't. All right, Roomy thoughts.
Yes, Goof, the infamous Goof, watched it with me Monday night, and I have 3 of his things written down. The one was, he goes, "There's a lot of fart humor in this movie," so he was a fan of that
There's
as
a
well.
lot.
He goes, "God, they play a lot on farts in this movie."
Oh no, there's a lot of scenes that end with fart. That's the joke.
Cut scene.
That's the joke. It's like not even like a clever play on it. It was just like that's it.
The next one, he said, when they started doing the car wash to raise money for their uniforms, he said the plot is eerily similar in this movie to the plot of Dodgeball. He was like, a ragtag group, they're coming together to try to form a team. They've got to do a car wash to raise the money for their uniforms. Like, it's eerily similar.
A small thing, by the way, before we move on to your third goof thought, which is the Cowboys uniforms in this are so choice, and they made it seem like that when they were doing the initial tryouts and they had all the helmets stacked up and they pull out the jerseys, like you're just like, oh, this is serious. Okay, like we have sunk some money into this.
Yep.
That was, and there. By the way, I don't know if we mentioned it. There's something great about the Cowboys being the bad guys. Like that's so.
First time I've ever rooted for the Giants over the Cowboys.
Oh
Not scared to admit
man.
that.
Well, and remember,
Last time too.
Yes.
And remember, because this movie came out in '94. Is that right?
Yeah, they were in the midst of their 3P, weren't they?
Right. This is the height of their powers. They are the perfect antagonist team.
A very good point, Tep.
Yeah, Goof brought up, he was like, man, those jerseys are pretty, he was like, those are legit. But the last random comment I got from Goof is there was at one point in time it was right before the game when Spike just starts barking like a dog.
And his dad literally holding him back.
Yeah, I mean, and it was like not like a growl, like, I mean, it was like a whoop, like, and Goof just goes, dude, Spike is on roids. He was like, there is no other explanation than that kid is weighted up right now.
I think that there is an undercurrent of that, and there's a really offhanded comment that Spike's dad makes to Danny when Danny gets there first to recruit him, that says, every night I rub evaporated milk on his
calves or
So that, and again, what they're saying is that it's creepy. He has this like creepy obsession with making his son great. Right. But I do wonder if there is like an undertone of like, oh no, I'm juicing my kid up.
Right.
Because this kid is jacked. He's getting off. The first you see him, he is carrying a refrigerator on his back.
And the bark, I'm telling you, the barking is what did it in, because it's like.
Yeah.
Ashley.
Oh no.
We're good.
There we go. We got Pickle back.
Good.
We got her. There she is.
Yeah.
I think there might actually be, in the same way that like Ish, you were saying, is there a thing about like sexism in the workplace? Was there like a subtle idea of like, yeah, no, we're not saying he's on steroids.
Yeah.
All right. So there are wife/roomie thoughts. Let's see. The last category. You've got 5 stars. What's your ranking of this? Tep, would you like to go first?
Sure. I'll be honest. Last night, I had this at a 2 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
I did. At a 2 out of 5. After sleeping on it and thinking about it, I'm giving it a 3 out of 5. I think that this is a movie that while you're watching it, you can't, you're just like, this is so dumb. This is so dumb. Why am I doing this? But when you get to the end and afterwards, you take it as a whole, my overall thought was like, yeah, that's a dumb movie. But it's charming dumb, right? It's at least charming. If you're going to be dumb, at least be charming. And that's what this was. It was, it was not a miserable experience. I give this a 3 out of 5. I think I would not recommend this, if that makes sense. I don't know if I would say stop down what you're doing tonight and go pay $4 like Will on YouTube to watch it. I don't know if I'd tell you to do that. But if this pops across your scene and you got nothing else to do, yeah, give it a go. It is, if you just want to be teleported back to the 90s, this is a painfully 90s movie. But yeah, I would give it a 3 out of 5.
Ish.
I would bump it up to a 3.5. I would say it's not a 4, right? I think there are some holes and there's some cheesiness that kind of doesn't land with me that prevents her being a 4. But like, I would recommend, especially if you have kids. Like, I think this is a movie that like tons of kids should enjoy, and it might be getting lost in the ether because of it grew up in a 90s period or early 2000s kind of kids kind of watched it. If you have kids now, you got nothing to do with them, and you know they like football. You know, this is a way to give them something, and I can almost guarantee they'll love it and they'll be obsessed with this movie. And like, because yeah, I don't know, I'm trying to think of movies. There's other movies that have tried to do like the youth kids scene football, and it doesn't work, or it's really just a lot worse or done a lot more cynically. So I'm gonna say 3.5. I think if you got some kids at home, you got 1 or 2 kids who are into football or more, you know, just throw it on and you'll probably enjoy it all together.
Ish, you used a really important word there, which is cynical. And this movie, at the very least, even if you don't laugh at the farts, even if you don't think it's funny or anything like that, this movie is not cynical. And that,
well, I was gonna say, you can look to the director, Dwayne Dunham. I don't know if you know his big movie, because he was an editor in Hollywood before. He edited actually a big time editor, Star Wars. He edited Apocalypse. He was an assistant on Apocalypse Now.
Wait, what?
Yeah, he wasn't the editor, but he was an editor for Star Wars and all.
That's awesome.
But his big movie, his first directorial debut, I don't know if you guys know, was Homeward Bound the year before.
Oh,
Incredible journey. And so you want to talk about a non-cynical, because especially with dog movies, like those are really cynical. That was like the original, like heartbreaking, touching family movie.
Good-hearted movie. And this is a good-hearted movie. Yeah.
Right.
Very nice. All right, Will.
all right. I compare all sports movies to Rudy, which I will give a 5 out of a 5. So, no, I'm in all seriousness, I'm with Ish. 3.5 stars, not quite a 4, because I think, as Ish alluded to, there were some holes there, but I think it was cute. I think it was adorable for the time. I think it was appropriate. I still think it's appropriate now. It's cliche in a lot of ways, especially kind of small town life, which I know well, and I thought the characters were endearing, and I liked that there was a small female football player as one of the lead actors or actresses in this thing. So I would definitely recommend it if you have not seen this. Definitely worth an hour and 40 minutes of your time, especially now when you don't have much else going on.
It's an easy watch.
Yeah,
It's an easy watch. You don't have to slug through this. Like we were talking with Necessary Roughness, that it was, oh God, like please just end.
Right.
This movie, this is not difficult to watch.
Not at all. I've got it. I'm going to give it a 4. I loved it. I told y'all that from the start. I really genuinely, and I had never seen it before. So I think that maybe that's a little bit of the difference maybe between Ish and I is, like you said, you were really concerned going into it, like, are my childhood dreams going to be crushed here because I thought it was so good? And now I look back and think, oh God, like I had never had that experience, I guess, as the kid watching that. And so I guess it kind of took me back. But yeah, I mean, my girl Icebox, like she is
Beast.
And we love her. I thought that was absolutely great. I felt like I really, really related to this movie, if I haven't said that enough. But I absolutely enjoyed that. I thought that it was funny. Like Tepper said, I did not have to sit there and like go, oh, hang on, I missed that. What was happening? Let me go back and rewatch it. It was like I was engaged. There was good humor. It kind of brought in like a sibling battle type of thing, which for anybody that has siblings, you know that that's obviously relatable in that portion in and of itself. So yeah, I thought it was, I really, really did enjoy this one. This one has been, it wouldn't be Friday Night Lights out of the 3 that we've watched, but the gap in between this one at number 2 and Necessary Roughness at 3 is so substantial. I don't even think I could put a number to it.
By the way, so she was played by Shauna Waldron, is her name. She was in The American President pretty much soon after this. And then after that, just it didn't.
She's Icebox.
She's Icebox.
She's Icebox like forever.
That's good enough for me.
She's still working. She was in a movie last year and played the character, but who knows? Yeah, she's Icebox forever. But yeah, overall, if anything, it was nice to revisit Rick Moranis.
Rick Moranis is a national treasure.
Yeah,
he's great. This makes me want to go watch like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yes, and get a go-kart.
And get a go-kart. Oh my gosh.
That go-kart. By the way, can we just mention the fact that like while they're racing to go chase Spike, like they cause like a traffic accident in this? I was thinking like, what are we doing here, guys? Pee-wee football. Okay. All right, there it is, our football movie of the month, Little Giants. That's going to do it for us. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Follow us on Twitter at DCTF. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Dave Campbell's. Follow us on Instagram, instagram.com/Dave Campbell's. And, of course, see us at texasfootball.com for Hot Hands William Wilkerson, for the Icebox, Ashley Pickle. And, Ish, who do you want to be?
I'll be Rad Tad.
For Rad Tad Ishmael Johnson, I am Spike Greg Tepper. Vince Young, your trophy. We'll see you tomorrow on Texas Football Today.